All right. Hey, Al. It's the 20th of May. This is the last meeting for the spring of Aiken PBL live coding. We've been getting together for the last few months to talk about the Aiken PBL course. And that course is going to stay live. And anybody who wants to keep learning, the course is there. The Gimbalabs Discord is open. But all of us are framing some projects for ourselves that we're going to be focused on over the summer. I know that Emmanuel's planning to have some students um, working through some of this content this summer. And so it'll be fun to look at Asteria today. Lewis was just sharing before we went live that he's working on some tooling for students in the Jambala project. So very excited to see that stuff come online. But yeah, if you're catching this video later, just want you to know that we're going to go on a little hiatus from these live sessions. But if you need support, be sure to drop by the Gimbal Labs Discord anytime, and you'll find somebody there who's happy to help you out. To wrap things up, we're going to look at Asteria, and you can see Emmanuel's screen. Emmanuel, take us through what we're looking at here.
Yeah, thanks, James. So what we're looking at is the Asteria validator to create sheep. Um, if you are checking right on my screen, you'll be seeing a validator of Asteria with these parameters right here. So these are the parameters. Um, I think I am a bit noisy, but just bear with me. So these are the parameters of Asteria, and basically this is the audited Asteria validator from TXPipe. We were having the same issue when we were trying to create sheep before, but I was thinking maybe if we should migrate to the audited Asteria TXPipe audited code, the Aiken one. Maybe the issue will be cleared up, but unfortunately, the issue still um, comes up. So this is the audited Asteria code right here. And I think the logics are still the same, just some one or two changes just to make it easier to read. And yeah, um, so this is the code. Which we are checking on the redeemer to add new sheet, which is basically the step we are on right now. Our previous steps has been on the admin side. On the admin side, we are going to be creating Asteria and we are going to be creating payloads. But right now we are on the user side, and one of the first steps to make on the user side is to add new sheet, which is what we are doing right here, add new sheet. I'll be going through some of the codes, but not deeper parts of them. Um, we are filtering some outputs in the transaction. Yeah, in the transaction. If you should check on the comments here, double satisfaction with two Asterian outputs is not possible. Thanks to checking if you are doing policy. Um, yeah, so but what we are looking right is we are making sure we have the correct Asteria output. So we are finding the output in the transaction, the output dot address. We are filtering the Asteria address out of it and making sure we are checking on the Asteria output. In this Asteria output, you'll be seeing right here that we are initializing this output to be equals to the Asteria output. And in this output, the address should be the Asteria output address we've done. James, if I'm wrong, but I think this underscore is like to say um, uh, it's the output we got here, the Asteria output, right? The output we filter from this place. It should be the address. That's why the underscore is there. And the Asteria value, um, which would be defined later. The Asteria value datum, Asteria datum, yeah, Asteria datum, let's see, Asteria datum. The Asteria datum and the reference script none. So if we should check on for correct Asteria output datum, for the correct Asteria output datum, which is Asteria datum must be equals to is initialized to Asteria datum right here, and the Asteria datum must be a ship counter addition to one and the shipyard policy, uh, which is basically we must be adding one to our shipyard policy, to our ship counter, which was initially zero. To create a ship, we're adding one to the ship counter and the shipyard policy ID. And yeah, so let's must hold admin token. This is basically we are checking for the Asteria value. We should check on the Aiken quantity of, and the value is a value that's an asset value is containing the policy ID and the name, which is admin token policy. Where was admin token policy defined? Admin token policy. Admin token policy. Um, how can we find that? Um, Admin token policy. Um, Oh yeah, so admin token, it's been parameterized. So you would see that we are accessing the object. You're accessing the admin token as object, and the property as part of the object of admin token is the policy ID, which admin token it's parameterized admin token already. So we are accessing the property of the policy ID and the admin token name, which has been parameterized. So that value must be found in what do you call it? The part of the admin the part of the Asteria output, which must be greater than zero and must add field equals to Asteria value, which is this Asteria value. Uh, we are basically checking. This is equating. We are checking something like a pattern matching. That this Asteria value was the Asteria input plus output dot value. Then we are adding um ADA assets, which is the ADA assets must be the ADA assets quantity must be the shipment Lovelace fee. That is, we are adding a fee. We are adding a fee to our Asteria to our create ship to Asteria to our ship being created. And we are checking this shipment Lovelace fee, which the value is parameterized to the validator. So yes, so let Asteria must have correct value. So um, and is saying I think and is giving us like we have um uh we are saying these are the checks to be made in this validator. Must add fee, which is must add shipment Lovelace fee, while creating Asteria as part of the value, and must hold admin token, which everything have been checked from the value, right? So, and we are also having the correct data. So, if we should check down again, we are also checking if there is a correct ship UTXO in this transaction. So, expect ship output, which is the transaction that finds strict outputs. I don't know if I should be going to the ATM docs to check on how this works. Um, yeah. So, so yeah. if you're saying find script output, which means we have our output and we have the script hash, which basically says find all outputs that are paying into the given script hash. If any, this is useful for contracts running over multiple transactions. So we are finding the output that is basically paying to a script hash. And when we are saying a script hash, it's a policy ID. And as we know that um, the payment credential on chain is being represented by its hash, just like our address pop key hash for the script is the script hash, right? So we are paying to that we are checking the output that is basically paying to that to that address. But on chain it's a hash. It's a hash, which is the policy ID. And the policy ID is the hash of the script, right? Policy ID is basically the hash of the script, right? So checking the output that is going to the policy ID script hash. Policy ID, which is the script hash. So we are expecting this output. We are expecting this output um to the script hash, right? So we are expecting an address. Um, yeah, so in this case, you would see that we are not filtering the address. Um, so that is why I think we are adding an address right here, and we are expecting a shift value of the correct type, a value of correct type of shift value, and we are expecting datum of correct type of shift datum. We are also expecting sorry, it's not a type, but we are expecting it to be a correct value. Yeah. So and reference create none and shift output. So for the correct shift datum, we'll be having our position, next position, y, shift token name, pilot token name, and latest move, last move, latest time. This is basically the time this transaction would be validated. This transaction will be validated until this time. And yeah, I think it's upper bound. So before we get there, so must respect um, minimum distance, which is the position x position y must be greater than or equals to the Asteria minimum distance. And I think and
Yes, no.
I think this was also parameterized to the validator Asteria minimum distance. And must have ship name, ship token name. We are concatenating the ship string like this ship to the ship counter, um, which was gotten from Asteria data ship counter, which is initially 0. So and we are expecting a correct type of pilot token name as well, just same as ship pilots, and we are concatenating it with valid ship counter is 0, and must have the latest time. This is the upper bound validity range. I think it would be nice to check on validity range. An interval of POSIX time, measure the number of seconds. So yeah, and so this can be gotten from the blockchain slots. Um, so if you should check on our option right here, option, let me quickly look at it. Option, where did I define? I think it was on YouTube. So so you should check TX latest POSIX time right here. We are fetching the latest slots with block first, and we are adding 600. So which means every slot is measured in seconds, right? So 600 seconds is, we should be doing the math. 600 seconds is actually 10 minutes. 600 seconds is 10 minutes, right? Um, so we are giving it that this transaction, it will be valid, it will remain valid for the next 10 minutes. So that is the time, that is our game time, right? Um, so yes, and let ship must add, and I might not be really specific with the untamed validator because there are some things we are not really sure of. So yes, and we are making sure we have all of those. Ship must have correct data and must respect minimum distance, must have ship name, must have pilot name. Um, Same as ship value, expected ship value, assets from assets, shipyard. No, we are making sure we are meeting the correct value. Um, expected ship value, which is this um, ship value. We are making sure we have the expected ship output value. That's the amount we are paying to the address, which I initially stated. The amount we are paying to this um shipyard policy. Um, so we are making sure we have the correct value, which is asset from assets, um, shipyard policy, and ship token. It should be a ship token name assets, and it should be a for token name asset. So, um, and it should be a for the token name of the second asset must be defined as well, which basically means we are paying a ship token that has been minted and the flow that would be also minted in this transaction um, to the to the shipyard policy ID, shipyard policy, which is the space-time address. Let me just say the space-time address right now. So to the space-time address. So so those are the two assets we'll be sending to space-time for it to have the correct value. So ship must have correct value. So assets dot match ship value, expected ship value must be greater than or equal to all of this. And the initial asset, the initial quantity we are sending to the initial quantity we are sending to the initial flow we are sending to as the flow quantity is it has been also parameterized in the validator. So it's going to check if you are passing in a different value from the value that has been parameterized, the validator won't allow that. The transaction is always failed. So we're also checking for the minting value in this transaction. So yeah, so shipyard policy, ship token name one, we must mint one of ship token and pilot token and also two token is initial for and we are checking that in this our minting value, which is basically the mint that was gotten from our transaction property. Yeah, so the mint that was gotten from our transaction property and I'm making sure it has a corrected method value. So that's everything to create a sheet. And so if we should come to our option right here, I don't want to be going through the option right now, but let's just go to the transaction and see what is actually giving us, right? Um, Yeah, so if I should hit on NPM start. Oh, um, yeah, let me make sure I'm passing it. So you would see that we are calling the function of the create tree. So this is our function of create tree. Create tree. So we are passing a lot of the parameters to it. Setting flow of list, the initial flow, um, and our latest persistent, which I showed you earlier from the utils from this place. Um, so yeah, so if you should check on what is happening right here, it's giving evaluate redeemers field, which means um, we are still not, our off-chain is still not matching what the on-chain expects, what the Aiken expects. And yeah, so you can see some console log, proper, I logged out some values, right? So, which is, this is the, I think, it's the last
And can
two.
you show again the error that's being thrown at the end of that transaction log
Yeah,
under this one? Yeah, evaluate redeemers. Is that is that your error message? No, that's the error message, right? Yeah, evaluate failed.
yeah.
Who's the provider you're using?
The block post, and I yeah, I'm using block post and Maestro. Um, yeah, so Maestro. I'm using all Maestro for now. Yeah.
Harsha, you've seen the same issue here.
Uh, I'm not sure which part I just joined, so I'm trying to figure out what's happening.
Yeah, and if you want to check on the off-chain, how it works, maybe you can go through that also. Um, um, so yes, I think I am a bit noisy. So, but yeah, so right here we are getting on. So before you can play Australia, you have to deploy some scripts. Um, and we are by deploying the script, we are passing in our main validators, which are still actually. Our main validator, which is the Asteria.80. Our main validators right here are the Asteria, Pellet, and Spacetime. The deploy is for us to deploy this transaction, is for us to deploy this script. Um, so yes, so um, by deploying, we're actually passing our main validators as a reference script to deploy validator, and that is what we are doing right here. We are now getting the script hashes of every deployed transaction. Um, yeah, so yes, so this is how we got on our so it would be nice to that, yeah. So these are the validation it wants us to always match, right? So Asteria must have correct value, right? So Asteria must have correct value. We should go to Asteria must have correct value right here, which means we must have fee to Asteria while creating the sheet, and we must hold admin token. So um this is where we are getting our Asteria value that Asteria that has been created, right? Asteria will first be created, and we are fetching the UTXOs in Asteria address um, with if you check right with the assets of sorry with the assets of admin token policy ID and plus the admin token, which is what the asset is defined as. Um, so yeah, yeah, so yeah, yeah. So not going extended to checking how this was created, but so we are just fetching. This is the amount that was paid. This is the asset that was paid to Asteria address. We are creating Asteria, right? So we are now fetching it with the assets from Asteria address. And those are the Asteria input UTXOs. Um, so have I console? Yeah, so I think I have console the Asteria input UTXOs. Um, let me check. Um, let me console the Asteria input UTXOs. Let me log it out. Just, yeah. Let's see what we have in Asteria input UTXOs. So if you are checking on Asteria input UTXO, um, yeah, yeah. So um, I think so you'll be seeing the inputs. But this is UTXO state, but I think this is not the clear enough. Yeah, so okay. I think Asteria input assets will be better. Um, um okay. Okay. I think I've done that already before. But yeah, that's the amount. Yeah. So we'll be able to see the assets.
Right. Um, I'm trying to remember. So really focusing on the error message we're seeing, the error is about evaluation, evaluate redeemers, right? And what I'm trying to remember, I I don't know if that only has to do with calculating the transaction execution cost correctly, or if that error is about an actual validation error. Does it
Um, James, are we sure it's a validation error because there is something with rate limit?
that could be too, yeah. So I don't what I'm saying, yeah. I think it's likely that there's the transaction is correct. I can't see any obvious errors with the inputs, outputs, the validation that you're checking. So I don't think we need to be looking at every specific UTXO in this case. What I would do is I would try to resolve only this error first. And then after you resolve this, if you're still getting an error that's different than this, then you would go and look at the specific UTXOs. But I wouldn't recommend spending more time trying to make sure each individual UTXO is correct. I would say either that's not a problem or we're not there yet.
Yeah, because if I should remove something like the evaluator, when I comment out the evaluator, I think it will give something like
Yeah, show us that. What error do you get when you comment that out? Because I
uh,
think that is the error that we must be looking at.
yeah, it gives the
You get this. Yeah, X units too big. Right. That makes sense. That's wonderful. Okay. So the what does this provider do? If you go back to your source code, right? In this example, we are asking the provider to do three things: submit, fetch, and evaluate, right? Submission is after I have a successful transaction, after it is successfully signed, it has to be submitted to a mempool so it can actually go on chain. That's pretty straightforward. That's not our problem right now. Fetcher is also pretty straightforward. All it's doing is it's getting any data from on chain that we don't yet have here. And we could say more about that, but also that's not the problem right now. The problem is, as you already noticed, with Evaluator. And what does Evaluator do? It takes a transaction where maybe we haven't yet applied the X units precisely, and it calculates those units for us so that we can report them correctly inside of the transaction. And if you go to the end of your transaction, you'll probably see dot complete somewhere down at the bottom. Yeah, there it is, line 178. You should read the documentation about this method. This is mesh, right? What does it do? It says it right there. It builds the transaction, queries for missing information. If that missing information includes execution costs, then it fills those in for us. Now, uncomment that evaluator line again. And like Adrian pointed us to, let's really read the specific error that we're getting so that we can allocate our attention better.
a validator to an error while executing redeemer stand one. Um,
And the first thing Adrian pointed out, I see the words rate limit, but that rate limit remaining seven rate. So I don't know. Are
Yeah, so maybe it is really a validation error, as it is saying validator for an error while executing redeemer spent one.
okay. Right. So we're
But this
maybe
error message is
really,
really ugly.
yeah.
but um, uh, the former validator, I said this is the audited one. The former validator, I've tried because the former validator, there were no checks for what's it called? There
Okay.
were no checks for this output, find script output. It's just a validator to specify how Asteria validator itself would do steps without checking on the external outputs of all other you
Sure.
know, all other scripts. Yeah. So um I tried spending from Asteria directly without minting
Right.
and it was successful. Um
Oh, okay.
yeah, yeah, it was
Um,
successful.
yeah.
So
Well, and so okay, two things. One, I've never seen that error, the way it's stated there. What does it say in your console? Evaluate,
validator.
evaluate redeemers failed. I've never seen that error message for a validation error. Has anybody else seen those words, evaluate redeemers failed, when it is a validation error? All right. So when I see these words, the only thing I've ever seen these words to represent is that we are miscalculating X units or memory. That I'm almost certain that's what this means. And it makes sense, Emmanuel, with what you just said. You got rid of one of these and it worked. And think about it, right? You had a working transaction, it's fine. Then you added something to that transaction, and maybe that made it too expensive to run or something. So maybe you can show us what was working, and then we can add back in the thing that made it not work.
Yeah, that would be on the old validator. I would where is that? I think it should be in their old one of these their old branches. Yeah, you would see this were committed 6 months ago, so it's the old validator right here. The new one, I think it was done 2 months ago. So yeah, if you are seeing, you can see that the validator of this one is just is shorter compared to that audited one. So we are not checking anything here other than the validator of Asperia itself, right? And it's very easy to spend from it.
Right. Because this
Yeah,
the error we're looking at doesn't have anything to do with the on-chain code.
okay.
The error that we are seeing is because the transaction doesn't properly get the X units and memory. And I need to look up I'm not going to be able to find the right docs to point you to in this meeting. We need to find, I need to remember where I have some notes about this. But yeah, your error is in the off-chain code. We need to get the costs right, and you should read the mesh documentation, how costs are applied to these redeemers. If you put your mouse over any of those redeemers, mint redeemer value, any of the line 150, 162, for example. Yeah, oh, that one, fine. Yeah. You see X units are the last parameter. We need to see the mem and the steps there. And these need to satisfy two conditions. There needs to be enough mem and enough steps for each redeemer to do its work. And since you have three redeemers in the same transaction, the sum of the mem and x and steps, sorry, for each of those has to stay below the upper limit. And what's Adrian, do you know those numbers off the top of your head? Um, what's
No, don't know them.
there's a limit to the total amount of X units you can have, limit to mem and steps. Um, I need to look this up. I need to do a little homework to be able to help you on this. I'm sorry. But yeah, the error you're looking at, you're not going to make any progress on it by trying to validate better. You need to resolve this error by getting the correct costs in. Now you're able to hard code this, right? So when you define if exactly, right? When you define an evaluator in your provider and then you use dot complete at the end of the transaction, it fills these values in for you. But it's also possible to just comment out the evaluator and hard code your own X unit values for each of the redeemers. And it's a painful way to troubleshoot, but it's something I've done before and it helped me understand how this works. And now, right at this moment, I'm wishing I had taken better documentation for that because I can't find those docs right now. But yeah, I think you guys need to experiment with that. And again, I just want to really clarify this point. Don't worry about validation at this moment. Try to resolve this error by getting the execution units correct.
Yeah, yeah, thanks. Yeah, because I'm so sure I checked, double checked, triple checked. Everything is matching well. Because yeah, I don't know because if we should
Is there a transaction in the example they shared that does do all of the things you're trying to do in this transaction? In the in
yeah,
in the off-chain code examples that Asteria has published. Um,
yeah, this is it. But this is all lucid. But it's still easy to I think it's still straightforward to compare to transaction builder environment. Yeah.
this is frustrating. This is one of the more challenging frontiers is getting these transaction costs right.
Yeah, yeah.
Aren't there some providers who can do that?
That's what we're
Like just
trying to use here, right? But why are we getting this error? Like
yeah, so maybe using a different provider.
that could be.
Yeah. I think if I should use a blog post, I have blog posts initialized to um, blog template, some blog posts to evaluate, right? Um, is it for only the evaluation or I should use it for everything? Mm. Uh-uh. Then let's go for the time. Script failures. Evaluate redeemers field. Um, are you guys hearing me? Sorry, guys.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Um, this is giving evaluate redeemers field. Based on WSP script failures. And if we should try comparing with what we have in option. So these are the redeemers, right? And these are the redeemers to define the in this constructor zero in JSON format. Uh, we have a new transaction valid to the transaction is valid to this time. And we are reading from the Asteria ref, which is the reference script of Asteria space-time and products. Um, just as we have here. yeah, so but these things won't be exactly the same because I mentioned this that some kind of different logics. For example, this read from right here, we are basically getting it's like it's divided like this on like trending section reference, right? So we have the Asteria deploy script ref. So yeah, we are using to get the exact script. Um, so yeah, spending Pluto script. We have Asteria. We are trying to spend from Asteria script, right? And applying to Asteria script address with the total reward assets. What's the total reward asset? The total reward asset is this shouldn't be named total reward assets, but the total reward asset is admin token. This is the amount. This is the amount. This is the asset we are trying to spend from Asteria validator itself. We have admin token, which is one. And we have Asteria input data dot quantity, and we are adding a shipment log list field. Shipment log list field, which was also done right here. Asteria address, Asteria admin token, and Asteria input data plus shipment log list field. So after doing that, you have a deletion plus Asteria product. Um, and so to mix, we are mixing three assets together, which was also done here. Mix assets, ship token, and pilot token, and flow token, ship token. From the same policy ID, ship and pilot are minted from the same policy ID. Ship token and pilot token can see ship their policy ID. And yeah, so we also have flow. So sorry, ship pilot and flow. We are mixing the same way. Ship pilot and flow. With the correct agreements. And so this is where our collect. This is where they define their spending from. Collect from Asteria UTXO, and what we defined as in the first place. And yeah, so we are now paying to space time address, which we also did right here. Space time address. What assets do they have in the space time address? Are they paying? They are paying the ship and flow token. Assets to space time. It's divided as the ship token and the flow token, which is the initial flow. Also the initial flow. So yes, complete and time transaction. So yeah, complete and time transaction. But to me, yeah. So I think we'll be trying some things out to.
Yeah. And you can also try just getting rid of the word complete, right? And then comment out the evaluator part and then work through the errors that you see that way.
Okay, it's not working. This is giving us.
And
Right.
this will take some time to look at this, right? Because now you're going to get a different type here. I would make this something that you guys work on together as a team, is try to figure out how to hard code the X units.
Right. We have two options right now to check on. Yeah. So because this upstream, right? Um. So with constant checking and checking and checking and checking, it's already looking like a simple transaction to me, right? But yeah. So with constant checks, things will look like, yeah, I've been checking this and it's already looking like, oh my God, what have I been checking? I've checked and double checked and triple checked, but it's not going to accept if it's still wrong, right? Um, no matter the checks, if it's still wrong, it's not going to accept it, right? So, and yeah, so we have options right now to go to the evaluator by adding our transaction X unit on this. So
Exactly.
yeah,
Right, because you've checked everything else, and it's probably true that you have covered everything correctly. And so now the only thing we're talking about is making sure to address the error we're actually seeing, which is that we don't have the correct X units. So that's a great takeaway from today. I wish I had better news for you guys that this was an easy thing to do. It's not easy, but it's a valuable exercise to really understand how this works.
yeah, yeah. Thanks. Yeah. So I can also be bringing this up in our next Asha, right, in our next meeting on Friday. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Hey,
yeah.
hey, James, in the meantime, can you tell us what exactly the X units and the number are?
Yeah.
Yeah, so anytime we're doing on-chain validation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, you you have to you have to be able to calculate the cost of running a transaction.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, when you have smart contract validation in a transaction, that's going to be more expensive than just like a simple sending right? Sending some funds. It's
Correct. Yep.
there's more computational power required.
Mm-hmm.
And so the calculation of those units is what we're talking about here, right? Like based on and why is it related to Redeemer, right? Because if you think about the role of the Redeemer in both a validator and a transaction, in the validator, this is where I define my endpoints and maybe however whatever metaphor you like for Redeemers. We've talked about a few over the years. Is it my statement of intention? Is it just one of many endpoints for a validator? Is there a different way you want to talk about it? Fine. But at the end of the day, it's in the Redeemer that it makes the most sense to talk about these execution units because the Redeemer is the thing uh, that's that's specifying the action that we're taking, right? And so depending on what action I want to take with a validator, there's a cost to that action. And that is that the budget required for that action is defined as these X units that have a mem and a steps value, right? And so like the memory is like the amount of memory in the node that it requires. I think I need to look, you see, I need to look up the documentation so I can give a better explanation of this.
Yeah, should be correct. So in basically every node has to do some calculation, which requires memory units and CPU.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you have to pay for. And as a side note, that's also why you need collateral input to
Mm,
a smart contract transaction, because you could submit a, a wrong transaction with a malicious node, and
Mm-hmm.
then the mempool or the other validator nodes have to have some calculation cost, and you have to pay for that, even if the transaction fails.
Got it. Got it. So if we just increase the collateral amount, do you think it would make sense just to cover the
So
costs?
the collateral cost normally should be calculated by the transaction builder and has nothing to do with the validation.
Oh,
You need to have the memory units and CPU right to have a correct transaction.
and how so in case we have to hard code these numbers, how do we even go about calculating those numbers like in general?
Guess and check always works.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
I'm
like really, it's painful, but this is like the last frontier of kind of really getting a feel for how all this stuff works. It is really frustrating, unfortunately. I I I wish I had better news for you guys, but this is something that everybody who's building Cardano stuff has been through this.
Maybe if TXPipe provides a successful transaction or you can find it somewhere, you can look into Cardano Explorer and see the required memory units and CPU.
Okay, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay.
Thanks for trying this, guys. Yeah, and I'm actually feeling really frustrated right now because I wish I had a faster answer for you. Um, sorry. I'll if I have some time, I'll do some digging, but yeah, I think that's a good plan. Um, cool. But also, I'm feeling at peace that it's a good chance to take a break because I I feel I don't I can only speak for myself. I'm feeling kind of overwhelmed by how much there is to do right now. And so I'm excited that we are embarking on summer after this week. So looking forward to seeing everybody. Um, we're going to close out the All Things Go sessions tomorrow, also by making a plan for the summer. And then similarly, uh, we've got the open spaces on Thursday. Same idea, making plans for summer. So excited about all that. And thanks. Anybody watching this, we hope that you'll be in touch. And everybody here, we'll keep it going. Thanks, everybody.